Okay, so this is day 2 of 4 on this pasuk. God willing. All right, because we want to spend another week on this. Okay, so tapuche zahav b'maskios kasef davar davur al ofnav. Only now did I notice how weird davur. When do you ever see davur? This is a weird conjugation, right? All right, so I guess our working translation is golden apples in silver lattice work. Silver lattice work. An utterance spoken um, on its facets, dimensions, or manners. Okay, we don't really have a eloquent thing other than optimally, right? Okay, so we had a lot of different translations of this. Sadigon says, yeah, like apples of gold inside casings of silver is a statement spoken of optimally. Um, and Targum said a statement spoken in a persuasive manner, at least according to Jastrow. We'll do the Rambam in a little while. Our scroll has like golden apples carved on silver plates. That's the most radically different one that we've seen. So is a word spoken in its proper place. Rehearsed like golden apples in a silver sheath. So is a word streamlined for its purpose. That actually is a nice one also. Altar, golden apples and silver carvings, a word spoken in its own right way. Peskin, gold apples and silver lattice work, a word spoken aptly. Okay, so we had questions, which were, what is the subject of the pasuk? I think yesterday we basically said it's either about davka mishlei or about communication of ideas in general or communication in general. What's the mashal? What's the nimshal? And how do they correspond? So specifically, what is a tapuach zahav, literally and metaphorically? Um, I guess also we should say, like, are these two elements or one? So, for example, I mean, it's hard to say that they're not two. What is the significance of being bimaskios kasef? Is this usual or unusual? Okay, we don't know. What is the significance of kesef and zahav in this configuration? Is the tapuch zahav visible in the maskios kasef or hidden? And either way, I guess that's going to depend on whether it's lattice work or whether it's plated with silver. Um, and either way, why in the mushel and no, I don't know what I was supposed to say there. And what is the significance of the nimshal? Yeah, I don't know what I was going to ask there. All right, what kind of davar are we talking about here? And if the davar is referring to the genre of Mishlei, why not use the word mashal like other psukim? What is the import of davar, davur al ofnav as a standalone quality without reference to the content of the dibor? Or is the content of the dibor implied here? Is he giving us practical insight into how to make a statement this way? Meaning, like through the mashal in the first half, that's part of how to do it, or is he just telling us a benefit or quality of such a statement? But you got to read other works for how to do it. What's the havamina? Who's the intended audience? Is there any relationship with this and the prior psukim about quarrels? If so, what is it? If not, what is it doing here? Especially if this is a fundamental Mishlei methodology pasuk, why would it not be stated in one of the introductory prakim or at the beginning of Perach Hey? Given that the Meiri mentions that the Anshe Chizkiah widened the lattice work, so that'd be a good way to introduce what they're doing. And then is there any relationship between this and all psukim in Mishlei? Okay, so we had two approaches yesterday. Isaac was saying that this is about how to express an idea effectively, right? So the Havamina is that the idea speaks for itself, right? An idea, a well-expressed idea is automatically clear to everyone as if it's a golden apple. Kamashmalan, not everyone will be able to understand every idea. A well-expressed idea will have some sort of silver maskios that is what most people see, and the people who can really appreciate it until there's a golden apple underneath. Uh, yeah, right. In other words, rather than try to figure out how to make everyone understand it, you should work on making it so that people who don't understand it will come away with some value. The example we gave is the Torah. And some people are so stuck in the Havamina that they level this as a criticism, say like just speak more clearly. The answer is it's not always possible or it's not always desirable, either because not everyone's ready for the gold or they need the silver before they get the gold developmentally or other reasons. Yeah, Isaac?
Yeah, I think Mark Rosewater talks about this with designing magic cards that you can't make every magic card for everyone,
Right.
and so you want to make it so that different people can appreciate it on different levels. I think
Correct. Right.
that's the same principle.
My only question or criticism of this approach here is does this really apply to all statements? Like I do think that there are many statements or genres of statements where you don't want two levels and you want it to be absolutely clear. So I do think there needs to be something here in terms of qualifying this somehow.
Yeah, so I would say I was thinking about this when we were reading the translations again. I didn't make this point as much as strong as I meant to, but it's I think davar all fanav is where it's um I would say it's not just optimally, but I'd say it's something spoken to all of its dimensions.
Okay, something spoken in all its dimensions.
Yeah, and so then if you're trying to capture all the nuance of something, then that's like
I still don't think that's answering the question. I don't know if that's failing as an answer or if I'm not being clear about my question. My question is, if I'm giving a recipe for how to make cookies, okay, I there's no point in me making a two-level thing.
yeah. So
I
I'm
want to
saying
make it as clear
that's
as
not
possible.
something that has the quality of being or not being dove or all fun of. So I'm saying it's when you're expressing an idea that has um nuance that you
I see.
like
I think nuance is the wrong word. At least
maybe not okay.
or I'm misunderstanding your fundamental idea here. You can have very nuanced things that are on one level, and you could fully express all those nuances. What it sounded to me like you were saying is that, see, here's the problem. Nuance is a quantitative thing. I thought you
Okay,
were
yeah,
saying a qualitative thing, like that,
yeah.
or and maybe you're saying both. I don't know. I feel like there's a disconnect though.
No, I am saying a qualitative thing, and I'm not expressing it well.
Okay, so
I,
we'll come
I
back to you.
yeah, not dove or all
Less
fun.
less time today. All right, so Ariel's idea is the one I was thinking about the most. Okay, so Ariel said this is talking about the ideal teaching. I don't know. There's probably a better way to say that. Why an apple? I'm just going to go cut right to the quality, the chase here. So we said basically like this: there's four qualities that you need that you should aim for in conveying an idea. One is intrinsic value, that's zahav. The other is intrinsic beauty, and by intrinsic beauty we meant what Rapezak said about beauty, that like there's a certain type of beauty that's the hallmark of truth or of a good idea. Then there's eloquence or clarity. That's the Moskios. It needs to be clear and see through. That's the expressed by the see through. And then practical value. So one thing I didn't think about yesterday is, and this is a classic move in Mishlei. What's the difference between gold and silver in like I guess economics? Is that gold is a standard of intrinsic value. Silver is currency, right? So it needs to have purchasing power or currency, meaning you need to be able to use it. So I think that's like a good muscle for why it uses kesef. In other words, it's not just kesef is not just like a less valuable metal than gold. It's less valuable, but it has a different use. It's for like usability. You can't just go and take a gold bar and like put it down on the counter and say like, give me an object. Yeah.
How is Moskios clarity in a
Yeah. So
nutshell? What does that mean?
right. So I think what it means. So this is the thing that. So I'm used to thinking of Moskios more the way Isaac was saying, which is that it gives you access to the gold. But I think Moskios might just mean that. See, if you think of Moskios primarily as a casing, a receptacle, you know, the thing that houses the gold or that conveys the gold. So then saying that you need to convey it in a way that has utility. Okay. But now why see through? So that could either be a muscle for clarity, like its own independent muscle for clarity. Like in Mishlei, one of the psukim that I'm sure someone's going to quote is in Mishlei 7 with the adulterous or the strange woman. Why is this not loading? Okay. When she's looking through, let me just maybe refresh. No. All right, maybe it's down.
Incognito, this doesn't happen.
Okay.
I know it's true.
Ew, English.
Yeah.
All right.
What's wrong with the English?
No, just to me it's an eyesore.
Oh.
No, all right. Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay. When she's looking at the Na'ar, oh, interesting. I thought it used the term lattice work. Maybe that's just art scroll. Hold on. Or it's a different word. Hold on. B'cholim Besi. Yeah, see, look through my lattice. Ad Eshnabi. What is the Eshnav? Anyway, I think this still supports my point is that you got to remember see-through glass was not a thing that like people use like in normal things. So like if you want something that is see-through, then lattice work is a way to house it. So in other words, it could just be conveying the quality of clarity of like being able to see.
It's just clarity, then we should just get rid of the soul.
Um, so that's why you need the silver for a different idea, which is utility.
So you're saying you want it to be clear that there's a see-through element to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want the yeah. It's I guess the thing that is funny about this is like each of these things, each of these mashalim are on a different level. Like what it reminds me of is the most awkward mashal in Mishlei or not Mishlei in Shlomo's works at the end. I think I drew a picture of this once. Um, Divrei Chachamim. Where does it say it? Yeah, in Koheles 12:11. Divrei Chachamim kedarvonos uchmasmros nituim bale asukos nitu miro echad. So it is. I think Rashi's the one who says it's like. Oh wait, hold on. Let me just see if I did this. Hold on. If I look up cattle prod, I bet that's the only one I have cattle prod. I'm just trying to remember if I actually prod. No. All right, never mind. It's like whatever. It's a very, very mixed up mushal where each element conveys its idea in a different in a different image. In other words, usually the way you work with a mushal, I think, is like you have let's say, for example, if I said like a shulchan aruch, and a mappa, right, and utensils, right, and the ma'areches hashulchan, like these are all part of the same mushal. Here, each of the four elements is conveying something in a different zone. Like that's kind of like the class of mushal that I'm taking. Yeah, Isaac.
So just based on Ariel's idea, I feel like it makes sense to say that the Anshe Chizkiyahu did something with the silver lattice work, but it seems to me more like that they added more silver rather than widening the gaps.
Oh, no. I think they widen the gaps. Oh, I know. I see why you're saying that because they're giving more of the value of utility here. Yeah, right. Yeah, I see what you mean. That is definitely true. As we've seen so far that they've made the psukim more direct in terms of this is what you should do. Right. Yeah. I hear what you're saying. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's part of the fact that it's two different qualities here. Okay, I still think I'm personally drawn to Ariel's just because I think this avoids the question I had on Isaac's, which is that this does apply to all statements in every area. Yeah.
Doesn't need it. What I mean, just to answer that question, can't it just be abstract ideas that Musky is talking about? Like, why does it need to talk about every statement?
It doesn't need to. It's just that the dover to me is the most generic term you can use for a statement.
Even though, like you said, there are three categories of statements, like of Mishlei, so it can apply to everything. Only specific cases are like somewhere in between.
Yeah, I'm saying like all statements and all ideas in all contexts. Like the ideal, like the epitome of the paradigmatic dibur would be one that is valuable, beautiful, clear, and practical. Or at least you could like practically integrate it. And obviously, again, if you're giving metaphysics, physics, halacha, and cookie recipes, like this is not saying everything should be gold. Like there are different levels, but like the paradigmatic dibur, and this would be like a dibur. I would say I translate davar all nav, not translate, but I would say like a dibur that checks off all the boxes. Yeah. Okay, let's read through the Rambam. I know we only have 15 minutes, but so I told you guys to get the Pines because I'm going to be reading from the Goodman, and you can spot me here. Now I don't know where to find it in the Pines. I don't know how to find it either. It's in the Hagdama. But there's like paragraphs where he's talking about mashalim. And the way I am going to, if you look for pasuk from Hosea, that says, through the prophets, did I use similitudes or did I use mashalim? And then when Yechezkel quotes the riddle a riddle and frame a figure. Maybe I can look for it just because I've seen more. You got it? Okay, what page?
Page 11.
Okay, nice. Oh, it's on page 11 in the Goodman also. You see he's mocked on no manuscript. Okay.
Maybe 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm erring on the side of reading the stuff around it. Okay, so again, I have not read this in a long time, and I didn't even look at the Makbili. I have not had time to prepare. Okay, having mentioned symbolism, I should say by way of preface that the key to understanding anything the prophets say and seeing its truth lies in interpreting their language and understanding their imagery. Just let me know if there's anything like radically different. Okay, God's words. Through the prophets did I use similitudes. What's the What does he say for some
No
moves?
God made Paul to said, and by the ministry of the prophets I viewed some of this.
Okay, nice. Two equal words that we don't use in real life. Okay. Okay, I'll mention. I know I mentioned this fact a lot, but the most important fact I learned about Pines recently is that he was not comfortable with English, so that's why he uses really really weird English words, like the way there's a movie. I want to say it was the movie Everything is Illuminated, which is based on a true story by Saffron Foer. His tour guide, it's like every sentence he used was if you looked up a word in the dictionary and used like the third word, or sorry, in a thesaurus and use the third word. Like that's kind of the sense I get from Pines, which is why Goodman like actually uses mostly normal words, but not all the time. Okay, you know how it says riddle a riddle and frame a figure. The prophets rely so heavily on imagery, as you know, that one will say, they say of me, isn't he a riddler? Solomon's opening to understand proverb and figure and the words of and riddles of the wise. That's the Havin Matra Umalita Divrei Chachamim V'Chidosam. So Chida is what he's using for riddle. The Midrash says, what were the Torah's words like before Solomon arose? Like a well with waters deep and cool that none could drink from. What did one insightful man do? He spliced cord to cord and rope to rope and drew them up and drank. So did Solomon lay figure upon figure and splice words together until he understood the Torah's words. I don't like that translation. This is the what I call Mishlei, right? This is the series of mashalim in shiur and Rabbah about Mishlei, and there's like 7 or 8 of them. So this is the well drawing mashal here. Okay, so I do not think any. Again, we're just reading. Get the facts here. Okay, we can think about it later. I do not think any sensible person imagines that the biblical words said here to need subtle unriddling of their imagery are the rules for building a sukkah or those about the lulav or the 4 kinds of trustees. Okay, so in other words, he's saying this is not talking about halacha when it's talking about divrei chachamim v'chidosam. That's not saying that halachic things are in riddles. Okay, we're not Muslims according to the Rambam. Anyone ever seen that like inside in Muslim texts, like where the Rambam says the difference between the Christians and the Muslims is that the Christians say the mitzvos were commanded, but they no longer apply, whereas the Muslims say that they're just mashalim and they're ramazim. Like I've just never heard of that as a like Islamic teaching. Okay, the point clearly is our grasp of profundities. Now, I would guess that he means something like sodos here or esoteric ideas. Okay. Of this, the rabbis say, someone who has lost a silver sella or a pearl at home can find it by lighting a penny candle. So too, a figure is nothing, but by its light you can make out the Torah's words. That's another thing from the same Midrash and shiur and Rabbah. I love that one. Okay, that if you lose a precious, valuable object, you can find it by lighting a candle worth a penny. So it's just a great mashal because it's acknowledging that the mashal is not worth much, but it illuminates things that are worth a lot. Okay. Notice how well, and the introduction to this is it says you shouldn't make fun of Mishlei, okay, because of this. Okay, in other words, it is easy to look at Mishlei and say it's just simple proverbs. Yeah, it's simple proverbs, and that's just a simple candle. How's it ever going to lead to anything valuable? Because it illuminates. Okay, notice how they call the deeper meaning of the Torah's words a pearl, but confess. Does it say pearl in yours? Oh, interesting. But confess the surface sense of any figure is nothing. They compare the unseen sense of an image to a pearl lost in a dark, cluttered house. It is there, but the owner cannot see it or know that it is there. He might just as well not own it. He cannot use it until he kindles the light they mentioned, grasping a figure's meaning. Interesting. Yeah, so far this is different than the way we've been saying it, because he is not presenting the mashal as having not intrinsic, as having kesef worth. It's having penny worth, right? And the value is only in illuminating the gold, right? Not that you can spend the thing, I mean, maybe you can say that's the same mashal, but I'm getting a different vibe. Okay. Golden apples chased with silver is a word well spoken, says the sage. To explain, the chasing, maskios, is a filigree tracery with tiny open work eyelets like the ones that silversmiths make. They are called eyelets because you can see through them. For the Targum renders vayash kef, this is Alpnei Sodom, I think, right? As v'istichi, he looked out. A poetic figure, it says, is like a golden apple encased in silver filigree with tiny piercings, an expression that works on 2 levels, internal and external. Does yours say internal and external?
I got lost by the
Rule 12. So like
I know, but what does it say?
where he says that we're saying that it's two meanings, he needs an external and internal one.
Okay, yeah. See how wonderfully this describes well-wrought imagery. When words work on two levels, it says a surface and a deeper meaning. The outer sense should be fine and fair as silver, but the inner must be more, as gold is more precious than silver. Still, the surface sense should lead those who ponder it toward the inner, as the tiny eyelets do in the silver tracery around this apple. At a glance or at a distance, it looks, that's the key point. At a glance or at a distance, it looks like a silver apple, but a keen observer who studies it closely will see inside and realize that it is gold. You know, it reminds me of like, I don't know fashion, but like, I feel like women sometimes wear like garments that when you see it far away, it looks like solid material, but then when you look up, it's got like transparent thing that you can like see the skin through. You know, that's like the sense that I'm getting from this. You know, it's like you would think it is just silver, but when you look closer, you're like, wait, is that gold there? Okay. So the prophet's poesy holds practical wisdom on the surface. Okay. Does there say practical wisdom? You're really bad at this, Ezra. I know. Okay, good.
Which is the welfare of human society.
Okay, good. Including much that is wholesome socially. I think better for the welfare of society. I think that's a better translation. As the plain sense of Proverbs and similar sayings clearly do. Okay, so this is not denying what we were saying, but the inner sense bears a wisdom salubrious. I forget what I said about Goodman being more readable. Salubrious means like health giving, right? Useful.
He's still concerned with the truth as it is.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. All right. So, but the inner sense bears a wisdom salubrious in another way, imparting truths about reality with a capital R. Ooh, I'm a big fan of using capital R's for like a reality. And now, true existence. In 40, my footnote 40 says the whole point of this is quoting from Fletcher. Obviously, I don't know who this is. The whole point of allegory is that it does not need to be read exegetically. It often has a literal level that makes good sense all by itself. But somehow this literal surface suggests a peculiar doubleness of intention that lends itself to a secondary reading, once seen, felt strongly to be the final intention behind the primary meaning. So what I'm getting from here and also from the Rambam is, I've said this before, that Mishlei is not like a normal proverb. So let's say Pirkei Avos is like a normal proverb, right? Aseh lecha rav, knei lecha chaver. Maybe this is a bad example. Don't befriend government. Be careful with government officials because they only bring a person close for their own benefit and they don't stand by a person in their time of need. Okay, right? So that's like a statement. Now, there's nothing in that statement that indicates that it's a mashal. Okay, but when you read a normal Mishlei pasuk from 10 through 24, it does not flow off the tongue, and there's like little weird features of it that point to something inside. And again, my favorite example of this is what's my favorite example of this, Isaac? I'm just blanking on the first half of the pasuk. The vegetable one. Oh, not vegetable one. Tov paskrev of shalvabami bais mali tifkei. Right. So better is a dry piece of bread with tranquility in it than a house filled with contentious meat. Right. So the fact that it uses zvachim for meat, it clearly means meat. Okay, but it's using zvachim is just weird. And then shalva is also strange. Shalom might be the more normal way to say it. It's like it's pointing to the fact that there's something like weird going on, and then that gets you to see the underneath thing. All right, fine. So going back to the Rambam. Now, there are two kinds of prophetic figures, those in which each word intends a specific idea, and those in which the figure as a whole makes a broad point, but a great many words are used that do not all add meaning, but only enrich and elaborate the imagery or keep it consistent as called for by poetry. Do bear this in mind. So in other words, there are mashalim where every single detail adds to the idea or has an idea to it. And then there are other mashalim where there's one idea and the only purpose of the details is just to flesh out the imagery to make it more impactful. Okay, an example of the first kind of prophetic symbolism, whether each one has a detail, is the vision of the ladder. Lo, a ladder stood on the ground. When it says a ladder, it means one thing. Stood on the ground, another. Its top reaching up to the heavens signifies a third idea. Lo, the angels of God, fourth. Ascending points to a fifth. Descending, a sixth. And there was the Lord standing atop it, a seventh. Each expression in this image adds another idea to the import of the figure as a whole. Yeah.
Word subject. First subject, second subject, third.
Interesting. Yeah. I like idea, but I hear it because I guess subject is just a little ambiguous in English because it could mean like topic, and that's
That's what I would show.
I think idea. Another example of this is the Rambam, or at least the way that the Malbim learns. The Rambam learns Eov, the big allegory of Eov here. Vayhi hayom, that's one idea. Vayavo b'nei Elohim, that's another idea. Hisyatzev al Hashem, that's another idea. Vayavo Gam is another one. Hasatan, another one. Bisocham is another one. V'yomer Hashem el Hasatan me'ayin tavo. That's another one. Vayana Satan es Hashem v'yomar mishut ba'aretz. That's another one. Umehis halech ba. That's another one. So if you just said the angels and the Satan were standing before Hashem, and like this arrival is just like details, that would be missing the point. Okay, hold on. Let's just finish reading this, and then we'll stop for today. The second kind of prophetic symbolism is, for example, here's in Mishlei. At the window of my house, I looked through the lattice. See, he says lattice also, and saw such simpletons. Among the boys, I saw a thoughtless youth crossing the street near her corner, walking toward her house at twilight, as dusk was falling. A woman meets him, dressed like a whore, knowing what she wants. Coy, wild, unruly. She cannot sit still at home. Now in the street, now in the square. She lurks at every corner. She has caught hold of him and kisses him, saying brazenly, I had some offerings to make, and today I paid my vows. Best pickup line ever. So I came out to meet you. I hoped I would see you, and I have found you. I spread coverlets on my bed, dyed fabrics of Egyptian linen. I've sprinkled the bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us drink our fill of loving until the morning and frolic with love. My husband is away. He's on a long trip. He took his purse and won't be home until mid-month. With a flood of enticing words, she sways him, seduces him with her glib chatter. The point, Rambam says, is to warn against chasing bodily pleasures and passions. He likens matter, the root of all such passions, to a woman, a married harlot. Okay, that's a great mashal also. He elaborates on that, I think, in 3:8 or 3:10. The whole book is based on this conceit. In a later chapter, 3:8, I shall explain the wisdom of this likening of matter to a married harlot, and why he closes this book of his with praises of a woman who is no harlot, but is wholeheartedly devoted to her family's welfare and her husband's interest. That's Aisha's Chayil. For whatever impedes our ultimate human fulfillment, all that is unruly or wanting in us comes strictly from the physical side, as I'll make clear. That is the point of the image, that one should not follow one's physical animal nature, for a man's proximate matter is like that of an animal. So in other words, unlike other Mefarshim, Rambam does not learn all those things as individual ideas. There are Mefarshim who do that, but he says it's all one idea. Now I have explained this and opened up the image for you. You will not be hunting for hidden meaning in I had some offerings to make, and today I've paid my vows, or tried to divine what is meant by I've spread coverlets on my bed, or what is added by my husband is away. Likewise with the rest of the passage. This is only what the imagery calls for, details suggestive of philandering and things that loose people say. Mark the point that I'm making here. It is critical to what I want to clarify. If you find that I've shed light on a sense of a certain image in some chapter of this work and alerted you to its broad theme, don't go probing every piece of it for some special meaning, seeking messages in every detail. You'll either miss the point or start glossing things not meant for glossing and not suited to it. That is the kind of project that breeds the mad ravings and written rants most sects today indulge in. They all hunt for meaning in words spoken with no such intent as they read into them. Your steady aim with most imagery should be for the general sense. Sometimes it may suffice if I just note that a certain narrative is allegorical and not spell things out. Once you know the passage is figurative, its symbolism will be plain to you. My saying so will be like taking off a blindfold. That's a good mashal. So this is also why I think that the opening Prakim and Mishlei have much more detailed imagery, but then later on, once you get the sense that like, okay, I'm just getting the main point of the mashal, he shows you the derech of how to make mashalim, he can just do one pasuk mashalim. Yeah, okay. All right, so there's a lot more here. I got to go, Isaac. I'm sorry. You'll have to put it in the chat, and we'll...
Sounds like he holds like Rabbi Zimmer.
What?
It sounds like he holds like Rabbi Zimmer, because he says the whole book is based on this conceit.
I don't think that's holding like Rabbi Zimmer at all.
Okay. Maybe I'm not holding it.
Yeah, no, that's not what Rabbi Zimmer holds. The way I understand it. Yeah. Okay. So we'll Bli Neder continue next week. And I'm gonna go over. I plan to go over this on Shabbos and see if there's more, but we'll distill it next time. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.